Well, the 2014 NFL season continues to roll right along. We've now reached Week 8, near the midpoint of the season. Hopefully it's been a profitable year for you so far. I've had a bad couple of weeks these last 2 weeks, so I got to work to get back to profitability, but never a better place to start than right here, Week 8. Several games caught my eye. I'd like to talk about a few of them now quickly. Do want to remind you that we preview all these games in detail here at BETDAQ Tips, so I hope you check back with us over the course of the week. But as I said, few standout games here in Week 8 that I'd like to mention now quickly, starting with Thursday night. San Diego Chargers going on the road to face division rival Denver. The Broncos a 7.5-point favorite on BETDAQ. That's a big number to be given a Chargers team that just 2 weeks ago many people were saying was maybe the best team in football. If you look at the Chargers over the last 2 weeks, they lost to Kansas City last week, nearly lost to Oakland the week before. Week 6, they squeaked by Oakland, 3-point win on the road there. Denver, meanwhile, finally looked like the Denver that we saw last week, in their win over the San Francisco 49ers. They really hadn't looked like that team all season. Heading into Week 6, the Broncos had only covered once all year. They were a double-digit favorite on the road in New York, and they looked like they weren't going to cover in that game before a late pick six bailed out the Denver Betters. But again, last week against San Francisco, they looked like the Denver team that we come to know last season. They just rolled right over the Niners. So I think a lot of people think that Denver's taking off now while the Chargers might be coming back to earth a little bit. That is why we see a number here like 7.5. I still think it feels like a little much. San Diego's been playing so well this season, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I've heard a lot of talk about Phillip Rivers, and deservedly so. He's probably the favorite for the MVP award right now. But this Chargers defense, third in points allowed, third against the pass. I know Denver just hung 42 points on an excellent 49ers defense last week, but until that game, this Denver offense hadn't been quite the same this season. They hadn't been nearly as good this season as they were last year. And I don't know about you, but I need more than one game to be convinced. So this feels like potentially a good buy low, sell high opportunity. After what we've seen out of the Chargers the last couple of weeks, might be a good chance to buy low on them. While Denver, after they rolled over San Francisco last week, might get to sell high on the Broncos. So it's early, I know, but this Thursday night game here, I have an early lean towards San Diego and the points there. Let's stay in the AFC now for a moment, talk about the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cincinnati to face their division rival Bengals. Talk about two teams going in different directions. Now, these teams faced off in Week 1 in Baltimore. Cincinnati pulled out a 7-point win in that game, but the Bengals just a 1-point favorite here. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised they are favored at all. The Bengals been more unpredictable, or I should say they've been more inconsistent than any team in the NFL this season. Over the first 3 weeks, they look like the best team in the league, bar none. They won their first 3 games. They ranked first in total defense after those first 3 weeks, and they ranked in the top 5 in total offense. None of those first 3 games was close. Then they had a bye in Week 4. And look at their last 3 games. They were blown out by the New England Patriots. They played Carolina to a tie, but that game was in Cincinnati, and the Bengals were a 7-point favorite, so that was not a good result for the Bengals. And then last week, they go to Indianapolis. They were only a 3-point underdog, and they were beaten 27-0 by the Colts. Just embarrassed. So now we look at this Bengals team. They sit at 3-3. What has happened to their defense? 31st in total defense. They're not defending the pass or the run well. 27th against the pass, 30th against the run. You want to blame it on injuries, but you look at their starting lineup in the last game, that 27-0 loss to Indianapolis, they're really pretty healthy. They are without middle linebacker Ray Maluga. They'll be without him for a couple of more weeks while he recovers from that hamstring injury. But everybody else pretty much out there. A little dinged up here and there, but no more than the average NFL team. You look at the Cincinnati injury report. Vontaze Burfict came back. He was playing last week, so it's very puzzling what's happening with this Cincinnati defense, not only based on what we saw last season when they were a top 5 defense, but what we saw over the first 3 weeks of this year when they were dominant on that side of the ball. The Bengals are not going to be able to be a winning team if they do not play really good defense, but we've seen them play championship-level defense before this season. I mean, we don't even have to go back to last year, so we know it's in there somewhere. However, certainly wasn't there last week, and this week they face a Baltimore offense that really has it rolling lately. Baltimore, 6th in the NFL in points scored. They're averaging 27.6 points per game. The Baltimore defense has been even better. The Ravens lead the league in points allowed, only surrendering 14.9 points per game. So here you have a Ravens team ranked 6th in points scored, 1st in points allowed. They're 5-2. The only 2 losses have come by 7 points. That 7-point loss on the road to Indianapolis. And week 1, like we talked about, they lost to this Cincinnati team by 7 at home. But right now, Baltimore looks like one of the best teams in the AFC. The Bengals fading badly. Still, this game in Cincinnati, the Bengals have already beaten the Ravens this season. Do you have faith in the Bengals here? A backs-against-the-wall situation, must-win, desperation time against a division rival. I don't know. It's a little early for me to make a call on this game. I'll tell you what is going to make a big difference, and that is whether or not Cincinnati is going to have A.J. Green, their best offensive player, at their disposal. Green's missed the last couple of weeks with a foot injury. They thought he might be able to suit up last week. He was not able to, though. If Green is not able to play Sunday against Baltimore, there is no question I like the Ravens in this spot. If A.J. Green is able to suit up, though, have to think about it a little bit. Because you look at the Ravens' defense, yes, they've been excellent this season, 1st in points allowed, like we said, but their weakness is the secondary. Heading into last week, they were 27th against the pass, 27th in pass defense. Played a little bit better in their win last week, but they are vulnerable in that secondary. So if Cincinnati has A.J. Green back in the lineup, that at least might give you a little bit of a reason to look at the Bengals in this game. But if Green is not going to play, it's going to be tough for me to have any faith in the Bengals after what we've seen out of them over the last couple of weeks. Let's stick in the AFC, shall we? Talk about another game involving an AFC North team. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They host the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Colts, a 3-point favorite on BETDAQ, 49 the total in this game, so a rare opportunity to back the Steelers as a home underdog, but they're a home underdog here for a good reason. The Colts look like the best team in the NFL right now. I know they don't have the best record in the NFL because they lost their first 2 games, but they have won 5 straight. They rank 2nd in points scored. They're averaging 30.9 points per game and 4th in points allowed. As a matter of fact, you look at this Indianapolis defense right now statistically, and you say, wow, what an improvement from last year to this year. They currently rank 3rd in total defense, 4th in points allowed, as we said. But last week's game against Indianapolis, when they shut out against Cincinnati, when they shut out the Bengals 27-0, that had a huge effect on their defensive stats, as you can imagine. Heading into last week's game, the Colts were middle of the pack, middle of the road in most defensive stats, but after shutting out the Bengals, they're now top 5 in most defensive stats. I think the truth probably somewhere in between, maybe a little closer to that middle of the road defense. The Colts aren't dominant on that side of the ball. However, they are much better than they have been over the last couple of seasons. And when you have an offense like theirs, led by Andrew Luck, who might be the best quarterback in the entire NFL, if you're just pretty good on the defensive side of the ball, that might be good enough. The Colts so good on offense right now, as we said, averaging just around 31 points per game. They made a Cincinnati defense that had a big reputation look silly last week. And this week they get a Pittsburgh defense that is clearly flawed. I'm sure you've seen the Steelers play plenty this season. They were just on national TV last week, Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans. They pulled out a win in that game. But anybody who watched that game, you can see Pittsburgh's flaws. Not as good as they have been in years past on defense. And even though they can move the football on offense, they have had trouble in the red zone this season. They've been top 10 in total offense all season, meaning yards per game, but they've been towards the bottom of the league in terms of points per game, so haven't been able to turn that offense into points. They were able to put up some points against the Houston Texans. Of course, as you saw that game, you know there was a 3.5-minute stretch there where Pittsburgh really did all of their damage. You take that 3-minute stretch out of the game, and the Steelers really wasn't a very impressive performance. Now, the Steelers do sit at 4-3 on the year. They've alternated wins and losses all season, and they are a home underdog here, so no doubt some people will be talking themselves into a Pittsburgh bet in this situation. I don't think I'm going to be one of those people. I've been fairly high on Pittsburgh this year. I've played on them a couple of times, and I've played against Indianapolis a couple of times. But you know what? At some point, you've seen what you need to see out of Andrew Luck and this Indianapolis Colts team. I think, as I said, they might be the best team in the entire NFL right now. And as we sit here now, early in the week, but it's tempting to get on board with Indianapolis as just a 3-point favorite against a flawed Pittsburgh Steelers team. Let's talk about a couple of NFC games now, shall we? Starting with what, in my mind, is the best game of the week. 2 5-1 teams face off when the Philadelphia Eagles head west to face the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, a 2.5-point favorite on BETDAQ. Now, the Eagles, we know the story with them. Excellent offense, that Chip Kelly warp speed offense, currently third in the NFL in points scored. And the Eagles have been better on defense this season. Now, they're not great on defense, no question about it, but definitely better than last season when they had one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. But they're not nearly as good on defense as the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, one of the league's best units. As a matter of fact, they are the NFL's best unit against the run, first in rushing defense. That could serve them well in this matchup. Even though the Eagles haven't been running the ball quite as well this season as they did last year when they led the NFL in rushing, they're still very good. They average over 120 yards per game on the ground. And if you could shut down that Eagles rushing attack and turn this offense, make this offense one-dimensional, force Nick Foles to beat you, then you really have an advantage. And if the Cardinals are able to do that, I think they're going to beat the Eagles. Now, shutting down the Eagles' running game, obviously easier said than done. But as we said, nobody is better against the run in the entire NFL than the Arizona Cardinals. They're fifth in points allowed. They're only surrendering 19.8 points per game. Now, surprisingly, the Cardinals have been vulnerable in the secondary this season, so we're going to see Nick Foles air it out a little bit in this game. But like I said, if the Cardinals are able to shut down that Philadelphia rushing attack, I like their chances in this spot, especially because their offense really starting to come around now that Carson Palmer back in the lineup. You look at this Cardinals offense, you look at the stats, they're still ugly. 28th in total offense, I believe. But look at this team when Carson Palmer has been in the game. They have a good offense when Palmer's in there. He is in there and healthy now. The nerve damage in his right shoulder is healed enough at least for him to play. And so now the Cardinals are able to get the ball downfield. Running back Andre Ellington has provided them a nice, consistent presence in the backfield this season. So it's early, but I have an early lean towards the Arizona Cardinals in this situation. Think this might be a good matchup for them, even though the Eagles, coming off a bye week, they've only lost once this season. But the fact that this game is in Arizona might be what pushes it over the top for me. Again, an early lean towards Arizona here for me. Last game I'd like to talk about now quickly, the Sunday night game. Should be a really fun game to watch. The Green Bay Packers traveling to New Orleans to face the Saints. The Saints, a 2-point favorite. Might shock a lot of people. The Saints are favored in this game, considering they are 2-4, and the Packers might be the hottest team in football. They've won 4 straight games. Aaron Rodgers really has it rolling now, and he'll be facing a New Orleans defense that ranks 28th in points allowed. Saints have had real trouble stopping their opposition this season. Last week, the Saints just lost a heartbreaker to the Detroit Lions. Don't know how they blew that game. They had a 2-score lead and the ball with less than 6 minutes to play, and then they kicked a field goal. So they added to that 2-score lead, but Detroit came back and won. Big 75-yard pass play from Matt Stafford to Golden Tate is what sort of kicked off that comeback, but it was just a gutting loss for the Saints. Still, though, no time to feel sorry for themselves, returning home now to face this great Green Bay team. And New Orleans, even though they're 2-4, they're right in the thick of it in their division. The NFC South, the worst division in football this season. Somebody's got to win the division. We know it's not going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're pretty sure it's not going to be the Atlanta Falcons after what we've seen out of them over the past couple of weeks. So I guess it's either going to be New Orleans or the Carolina Panthers, another flawed team. The Panthers were just blown out by these same Green Bay Packers last week. So the Saints still everything to play for, and they are coming home to the Superdome now. We know over the past 3 years, the Saints at home have been the best bet in the NFL. Still, are you willing to back this team as a favorite against the Green Bay Packers after what we've seen out of this Packers offense over the last couple of weeks? Aaron Rodgers facing this New Orleans defense, it's going to be tough. And let me tell you, nobody likes betting on the Saints at home more than me. Betting on New Orleans at home has made me a lot of money over the past 3 or 4 years, but it is going to be tough for me to talk myself into it facing this Green Bay Packers team, even though the Packers are vulnerable defensively. They've been playing very well lately, as we said, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but they're not good on defense. They're especially bad against the run. The Packers 31st against the run, only one team allowing more rushing yards than them. They're allowing nearly 150 yards per game on the ground. And even though when you think about the Saints, you think of them as a pass-first offense, and with good reason. Second in the NFL in pass yards per game this season. Drew Brees averaging 314 yards per game through the air. But they're also running the ball very well. 13th in rushing offense, averaging over 120 yards per game on the ground. So The Saints at home against a vulnerable defense, they're going to be able to put up some points for sure, but are they going to be able to contain Aaron Rodgers enough to give them a chance to win this game? To be honest with you, I don't know. I believe I have an early Green Bay lean, but it is early. We are talking about the Saints in the Superdome. Again, that is the Sunday night game. Should be a really fun one to watch. Well, there you have it. Those are a few games that caught my eye in this Week 8. As I said, we'll be previewing all these games in great detail here at BETDAQ Tips over the course of the week, so I do hope you check back with us. Until then, for BETDAQ NFL, I'm John Arnette.